Seventh and final lecture for the summer. The purpose of today's lecture is to prepare you to design and publish your Project 3 as a web page using Adobe Express. Therefore, we'll do two main things. First, I'll draw your attention to some great tips from the book about how to write for online environments. Next, I'll take you step by step through the process of getting started designing your own Adobe Express page. Before all that, however, I'd like to do another check-in to make sure you are totally clear about what you need to do for Project 3, and so you feel like you are prepared to accomplish it. Project 3, as I'm sure you have noticed, has a lot of moving parts. While it may seem as any other project, you research and then you write, both the research and the publishing phase have specific requirements. Let's break those down. First, there's the research. You choose a professional writing job or particular field and look for specific information about its duties, responsibilities, training, hiring process, and outlook as a career. The purpose is to compose a report that informs your peers about this job, letting them know what it's like, how to get it, and if it's any good. As I grade, I'll be looking for whether you achieved that purpose, but I'll also be looking to see if you include information from some specific sources. To get full credit for this project, you'll need to engage in at least 2 of 3 research activities. Take a look at the assignment sheet for specific requirements for each activity. I'll be publishing a resource with more detailed information about Project 3 in week 9. It won't be required to watch, but it might answer questions that come up about the project. To achieve the purpose of the project, it's likely that you'll need more information. That can come from secondary research that you do using the library website or other reliable sources. Once you've researched, you'll need to find a way to present your findings to an audience as a web page. Just like in the research phase, there is one special thing to consider. You must find some piece of data or information to represent visually. Remember, data doesn't have to be numbers. You might find that there's some quantitative or numerical information that you want to emphasize for readers. Perhaps it has to do with salaries or years of experience required or competitiveness of the job market expressed in applicants versus positions. You can create a graph or chart or anything to represent that. However, I'm happy to accept a visual representation of qualitative data as well. Maybe you noticed 3 themes that emerged from your interview with a professional in the field. I would be happy for you to find a way to graphically represent those themes, perhaps in icons or in some kind of chart with accompanying graphics. The other presentation or publication element is that you will write your report and design it in a way that is appropriate for an online audience. We'll discuss this more later in the lecture. You'll notice on the rubric that I will assess the research element of Project 3 by looking to see if you reference sources from the research activities. If I see that you provide information and screenshots from LinkedIn profiles, I will know that you conducted this research activity. Likewise, if I see quotes from a professional and see the corresponding works cited entry for a personal interview, I'll know you conducted an interview. As far as how I'll assess your visual representation of data, notice that I do not mention in the rubric that it needs to be beautiful, breathtaking, stunning, or perfectly suited for the audience. For the purposes of this project, I just want to see that you have experimented with representing data visually. Ideally, you choose data to represent that is meaningful to the audience, that needs emphasis, or that helps you explain your major points. Also, ideally, the visual is well designed, using colors and labels in audience-friendly ways. However, as long as you indicate that you created the visual and its purpose is clear, I'll give you full credit. Don't forget that I'll be holding open workshop/office hour times during the final week of instruction so that you can pop in and ask questions to get help on Project 3. I'm also available to chat via Zoom if those workshop times don't work out for you. Next, we'll discuss some basic guidelines and advice for how to compose professional writing in online spaces. Your reading from Chapter 6, pages 205 to 224, is full of excellent, solid tips for how to make sure you're meeting the needs of online audiences. Even if you usually skip the readings, I know how you all do it. I was a student once too. I highly suggest skimming it for this week and flagging it as valuable resource to use later. I especially liked page 207's image of the inverted pyramid and 208's checklist for writing concisely. I'll bring these and other tips to your attention now. As our book tells us, writing online content is different from writing for print and more challenging because your online audience is scanning a screen. Remember how we talked about email readers being afraid of long paragraphs and dense chunks of information? The same applies to readers of web pages. Our book notes that up to 80% of folks, quote, scan the screen for what interests them or what they need. Your job as a professional writer for online content is to design your information in ways that make your readers want to spend more time on the page and pay attention to your site. It's also to facilitate reader comprehension. The book suggests that you organize online content in the same way that a journalist might organize a news article. That is, use the inverted pyramid. In an academic paper, you do start with an intro and usually end with your thesis. We sometimes consider this a headline for the essay because it states the major claims or arguments. However, it doesn't go into much detail. It is usually just a preview for your expansion and explanation later. When writing using the inverted pyramid, you want your major findings to come first. Readers may not scroll to the bottom of the text, but they still need the major findings. Your detailed background information, that is your facts, data, and logic, must exist on the page, but put it after you give a clear idea of the major findings you want to present. When it comes to how exactly to write the content, the book outlines what I feel like is the perfect list of reminders for writing concisely. In other words, focus on writing in a way that manifests everything we discussed in week 2, leaving out zero words, using strong verbs, and avoiding passive voice. Also remember to keep the paragraphs short and to keep language plain and unaffected. In many ways, the principles you use to design your emails and instructions are still effective for web pages. You want to use design to highlight the most important parts of your content in the same way that you did for projects 1 and 2, by breaking up content into smaller chunks, by using headers and subheaders, and by incorporating lists. There is a ton more to say about web design, including how to best think about color, fonts, and how to best use graphics. Since this is a professional writing class, we'll focus mainly on the writing aspect, but pay attention to the content on pages 212 and 218, as these are nevertheless crucial parts of publishing on the web. Next, I'll draw your attention to the book's discussion of documenting sources on page 219. As we all know, there's a super specific and standardized way that we cite sources in the academy. APA, MLA, Chicago. These are so intense and detailed that it can feel like an oppressive, unrelenting pain in the whatever. Citing sources on the web is looser in terms of format, though your specific workplace may have its own standard formats. But that doesn't mean it's not a concern. You still have to cite, but you need to do so in a way that gives readers access to the sources without interrupting or getting in the way of their reading comprehension. When possible, consider just linking to the sources you're citing. Choose a relevant word, perhaps the name of the source or the author, here, like here, such as, according to Kevin Roos of the New York Times, highlighting and linking to Roos's article. If the source is in print or otherwise not available as a linked text, you'll have to find alternate ways to let the web readers know what sources you're using. One idea is to designate a page or section of the page for listing your sources. Make sure to include as much information as possible. Include at least the author's name, the publication, and the date. You can also provide its DOI, or Digital Object Identifier, if there is one. There are other ways you can creatively design the online web page so that you give credit to your sources without overwhelming or disturbing the reader. For Project 3, you must create a Word document that lists the sources in either MLA or APA format. You will turn that in along with the link to your final web page. However, you must also find a way to document your sources within your web page. You get to choose how you'd like to give credit in a way that works with your design and with your content. Lastly, be aware that copyright laws apply to web publications. Not all images are in the public domain. You can use images that are publicly available or that you have permission to use. Here are some ideas of places where you can find free public domain images to use for web content. Keep in mind that what you find on Google Images may look unprofessional on a web page given their low resolution. Finally, let's talk about Adobe Express and how to use it. Here are some things to be aware of before you get started. First, Express web pages have limited options for customizing the design. I find this passage helpful to explain the affordances and limitations of Express. So the advantage of this simplicity is that you can build a web page and share it often with almost no preparation or tutorial. The disadvantage of having, well, it used to be called Spark, but now it's Express, of having Express do all the thinking and coding for you is, one, it's awkward to build a website with multiple pages in Spark, and two, you only have a single option for the structure of an Express page, namely an unfolding vertical scroll. It notes that you only have that single option. There is a workaround for this. Please let me know if you want the quote-unquote advanced tutorial for how to create a kind of table of contents that links to different parts of the single page or links to multiple page. If you don't want to do that, continue on with this normal process. I'll say that with Express, you may not be able to achieve everything you'd like to, especially if you're trying to enact all the principles of good web content design we just discussed. Do the best you can. I will grade based on what Express does allow you to do. Let's take a look at some examples of Express pages. These are linked in a Week 8 page titled Adobe Express Web Page Examples, Resources, and Support. You'll see that you can customize Express pages to be beautiful and striking. You'll also see what the previous statement says is true. These pages are unfolding vertical scrolls. These are the kinds of websites you'll be building. Now that you know what it can do and what it can't do, let's look at how to work it. So as usual, you will sign into Adobe through the UAB website. You do that by typing in your school account and pressing continue. Make sure to click company or school account, and it asks you to sign it through Duo authentication. Once you've done this, you have access to the apps. Go ahead and click View All Apps and Services. Access all apps and services unless you want to scroll down and find it here, which is possible. Once you're here, in my version, over here on the left side pane, it already lists Adobe Express immediately. The other option is to click on Web, and it shows it right here. Whichever way you get to it, you want to click Launch. Express is able to create many different types of things, but what we want to do is scroll all the way down to web page. So to show you again, you click the purple plus sign and scroll all the way to web page. Now, I highly suggest going to themes first. While there are ways to make these look nice, there is a limited selection of themes. It chooses the font and the colors for you in terms of the text and the backgrounds. So when we're working on project 3, we might want to look for a more professional sort of theme. This one would work, but there are others. There's Crisp, for example. If it will go, must not be available. Crisp seems not available, or Crisp is what we're using right now. I've often used Chronicle, and Bruce is also nice. There are other options as well. So once you've got your theme, you go ahead and click off. This is going to be your title page. And the way that it works in Express is that you simply click on any of the available things and you're going to add your titles and subtitles. I am going to simply name this something not interesting or inspiring. You will be able to work with this and design it in a way that works for your project. I don't know if you want to put your name or if that's not quite relevant for this project. Your name can be elsewhere. A look into the professional writing field. The way the rest of the design works is through these plus buttons. So this plus button is within the title section, which means that you can add a photo that becomes the background to this title section. The same choices appear when you click photo in any of the other ones below. So it pops up with this pane on the right here. You can choose a photo that you already have downloaded, but there's also this really awesome stock photo search possibility that you have access to, which is kind of nice. I'm going to look for writing. The disadvantage is that you're going to get some quite generic things. Maybe that's going to work for your project. Maybe you want to make it look a little different, but this is absolutely available to you. The resolution is decent. You can tell that it works well for these larger images, and it's free, and you don't have to worry about copyright uses. So the way you build your site from here is by clicking a plus button. If you put a photo, you can add anything you want and it appears here in the middle. You have some different options. You can move it in different ways, down or up, before or after other content. You can also fill the screen with it, and you can change the focal point of it to perhaps this. Save, and it should move, though at this point in time, this actually takes up the entire one, so it's not really as helpful. You can add a caption if you want, or you can delete it easily by clicking delete. There are lots of other things you can do. A split layout is a good idea if you want an image on one side and text on another. We can also come here and delete this, delete section. You can embed videos, you can create a grid of photos, or you can create a glide show, which is when you choose a few different photos and you are able to add text and move through that text in a pleasing way. Always remember, you can delete all of these photos as well. The text is able to be in a larger header, section 1, or a smaller header. Begin writing your main information here. You also have the option of putting in a button. What a button does is it links to something outside of this page, or perhaps within it, though that's going to be the advanced tutorial if you would like an option for that. So you can put the text in it. For example, the Labor of Bureau Statistics editing job info. Not a terribly good title. I would play with that title, but I have this pulled up in case you wanted to link for your readers to this site. You can click save, and then whenever you click it, it takes you there. You can also edit this to be center aligned or to be further to the right. Now, here's a very important part. Once you've finished designing everything you want, you're finished, or even you just want to see what it's going to look like, you can come up here and push preview. This is the place where you are building the site. This is what it is going to actually look like whenever you've published the site. So you can get out of this, and as you see, there's a difference between what it looks like. It no longer has the pluses and the options, and then when you click this, it actually takes you to that place. Whereas when you're creating it, it has all of these different things here. Lastly, of importance is when you are ready to share this as a link, either as a draft or as your final, you're going to come over here and click share. You go up to publish and share link. You can pick a different title. So I'm going to say my web page for EH315. Also, these are giving the photo credits already, which comes straight from Adobe stock. You're going to we're going to click create link. Eventually it's here. You can change whatever you'd like, return to the link, copy the link, and when you type it in, it takes you to your page. Another thing you need to be aware of is anytime you make a new change, so let's say we have let's add a a photo grid of this, this, and this. We're going to save this. Now we have a photo grid. If you come over to the link, it does not have that change. This means that every time you make a change, you have to update the link. Right here, it's going to give you that option. Click Update the link. Wait for potentially forever, or maybe not, depending on how your internet is working. And while you're, hopefully it won't take very long, but in any case, you'll have a new link that expresses the changes that you have made. So I'm going to move away from this and say that if there are additional questions you have about this software, let me know. If you go to our Canvas page, you will notice that I have several resources posted in our Week 8 module. It's called Adobe Express Webpage Examples, Resources, and Support. You have the 2 examples of the Express pages we looked at, and then you have 2 different sets of instructions on how to create the web page, as well as a video. I gave you another way to look at how to share. So again, you'll click share, click publish, and then make sure that you share that link whenever you're ready. Let's see if it's done. Okay, so in this case, if it's not working, I would resave, see if it's going to work. And if not, then there may be some problem with my, yes, there's probably, oh, hello. Okay, now let's try it. We boop, boop, boop. And we see that hopefully those changes have been made. So you have all of these resources. You can return to this video, and hopefully that will help you find a way to compose your own Express web page.